So welcome guys to the second part of my essay writing guide. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how I'm going to break down essay writing into different parts. Then I'm going to give you guys an in-depth look into how to write an introductory paragraph and an awesome thesis statement. So take a look and skip around if you guys need to, but hopefully this is really going to help you guys out, especially with understanding how to organize an essay. So when it comes down to the parts of an essay, you gotta make sure you guys have all parts. Just like a math equation, like 2 + 2 = 4. If you're missing any of the parts, suddenly it's really hard to figure out. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense. Like right here, if I decide to take away the 2 from 2 + 2, suddenly this math equation becomes a lot harder. You gotta figure out what the missing variable is, and I'm gonna tell you guys right now, that just becomes algebra. And I'm going to tell you guys, us English teachers don't like math, and we don't like looking for parts of an essay that aren't there. So save yourself some time and some effort and pay attention right now. And hopefully I'm going to give you the tips, tricks, and the parts of an essay to make sure that you guys get a good grade on your papers. So obviously we got our 3 parts of an essay: the introduction, the body paragraphs, and then the conclusion. But besides breaking it down into these 3, we could actually take it a little bit further, because each part of an essay can be broken down into even more parts, like the introduction, for example. It can be broken into the hook, the information, and the thesis. What's even more is that the body paragraph can be broken down into 4 parts, something I'd like to call the claim, the evidence, the explanation, and the reasoning. And finally, the conclusion can be broken down into the hint, the information, and the thesis. Is that a lot? Because I think that's a lot. That's why, to make it a little bit easier to remember these 10 parts, I've broken it down into acronyms: HIT, CEER, and HIT. So you got a HIT introduction, a CER or CER paragraph, and a HIT conclusion. And check it out, I'm going to break it down even further. So the first thing we're going to work on is going to be that hit introduction, because when you introduce yourself, you want to be a big hit. The first thing you need is a hook. What's going to grab the audience's attention? Next thing is a little bit of information. What did they need to know about the topic before you start talking in the rest of the essay? Finally, you're going to end your introduction on the thesis. What are you even talking about? What's the point? When are you going to answer the prompt? Well, thesis is it. Before we go any further with these introductions, I just want to show you guys can use these essay writing methods in essays and also in real life. So here's an actual picture of my girlfriend, and let's just pretend that I don't know her for a second. And let's say I want to say hi to her in the store. So let's use this hit introduction method to say hi. So we're going to start with a hook, get her attention, give her a little bit of information to show her I'm not a weirdo, and then get to the point, the thesis. Tell her kind of why she should be talking to this guy. So to break the ice and get her attention, I might come up to her and say, "Someone once told me that otters hold hands so that they don't drift apart at sea." And so now she's wondering, who is this guy? So I gotta give her some information and let her know what she's getting herself into. So I'll say, "I guess I know a lot of animal facts because I'm an animal lover. I have 2 pets at home, and they're messy and silly, but they're the best friends I got as a single guy." She's probably wondering, where's this conversation going now? What's the point? So I better get to it, the thesis. I'll tell her, maybe that can change, because I'd really like to take you out on a date tonight. And maybe this introduction would work, and maybe it won't, but hey, at least I tried. So remember guys, whether it's asking somebody out on a date or starting an essay, a hook is just a way to break the ice. It doesn't really matter what you say, as long as it's kind of relevant and it captures people's eyes. The most important thing is going to be that information, letting them know what they're about to get themselves into. What do they want to keep on reading about? Before you finally get to the thesis, where you answer the prompt and answer the question that the essay gives you. So talking about prompts, let's see how we might use a hit introduction for an essay on gaming. So the prompt is console gaming better than PC gaming? So let's start with a hook. How do I need to get a life? I have many lives, is a quote said by many gamers. but that captures the eyes. It really gets you wondering, what's this going to be about? So now that we have the audience's attention, it's time to give them a little bit of information to know what they're going to be reading about. So here goes. The best way to play video games is something that can be argued about for days. Many individuals prefer playing with controllers and consoles. There are many others who disagree, preferring to use a keyboard and mouse. This leads to a lot of debate on if consoles or PCs are the better gaming system. Well, we're giving them a lot to think about. So now that they know what we're talking about, it's time to answer the prompt and give them our opinion on it. So this is where our thesis comes in. We say, even though some disagree, PC gaming is superior to consoles in a multitude of ways. You guys see how that thesis statement, that T in the hit intro, answers the question, is console gaming better than PC gaming? And clearly, the answer is no. So there you go, we got their attention with an interesting hook, a quote, just something to break the ice. Then we give them a little bit of information about what they're getting themselves into, so they know what this essay is going to be about. And then finally, we wrap it up by answering the question of our thesis. It asked us, is console gaming better than PC gaming? If you guys look at the part that I underlined, we answered that question. So make sure that you guys have that in your thesis statements. Remember, the thesis is one of the most important parts of your essay. It should always be answering the prompt. So let's take a closer look at those thesis statements because they're so important and they're a big part of your introduction. So I'm going to give you guys another example prompt. It says, what type of reading should students do? Fiction or nonfiction? I'm going to read this paragraph out loud and see if you guys can spot the thesis. The argument on how to best teach students is an intense one. English language arts classes have changed a lot over the last couple of decades. This focus is because of the need for high reading scores on standardized tests. In the reading debate, there is an ongoing argument on what type of texts American students should be reading in their language arts classes. Some argue for fiction, while others argue for nonfiction. Schools should be teaching primarily nonfiction because that helps with improving student test scores, giving students more relatable topics, and prepares students for real life. See if you guys can figure out where does this paragraph answer that question. Where does it answer the prompt of what type of reading should students do, fiction or nonfiction? Hopefully that was pretty easy to figure out because you guys can see right where I underlined, it answers the question. Schools should be teaching primarily nonfiction. And so make sure that guys, when you guys write your thesis statements, you guys can underline the part in your introduction that answers the prompt. And that's the easiest way to make sure that you guys have a good thesis statement. That you guys can underline the part that answers the question and answers the prompt. So remember, if an essay prompt is asking you a question like, for example, is Kanye West a good or bad musical artist? Make sure that in your thesis statement, you're going to answer the question. Here's an example of a good thesis. Kanye West is a terrible musical artist for many different reasons. And you guys can start listing out those reasons in your body paragraphs. But you answered the question. You said Kanye West is a terrible musical artist. And if you wanted to go even more in depth with your thesis statement, you might look at my second example, like Kanye West is a terrible musical artist because he has repetitive beats, is extremely rude to other artists, and had a hilariously bad presidential run in 2020. And if you want to do it that way, you have listed out your 3 reasons that might turn into your 3 body paragraphs too. Both of these are good thesis statements because they answer the question.